How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Vav, Daf 36 of Masechta Sanhedrin. Friends, what did we get up to, Lamaisa? Alright. Azoy. Alright, it's been, I've been on the move for the past, what's today? Today's Tuesday? When did I leave? It's so Wednesday? I can't remember. It's been very much on the move for like the past week, so everything's on the fly. So I don't really remember what this talks about, but I think it's A, not so hard, I think, and also B, I think it's relatively interesting. So here we go. We're going to start on Daf Lamed Vav Mud Aleph at the two dots, about 10-15 lines into Daf Lamed Vav Omid Aleph Dinim Omnes Atmeis V'Atayres V'Chuli Omer Ono Havoy B'Minyona Devei Rebbe. I was by the counting of Rebbe Minoi Didi Have Maschle Bereisha, and the Taka started with me. So our Mishnah said that by Dina Momenis, you Taka start with the Gadol, with the greatest one. Now, what does this mean? I actually didn't look this up. Let's see. Lamed Vav Amud Aleph. I have the article over here. Oh, Lamed Vav Amud Aleph. So what does it mean? I was in the Minyana. What does that mean? Okay. Where are we? No. I was involved in a vote in Rebbe's court. Oh, okay, fine. And they begin the business from me first. Alright. So again, so Amar Rav says, I was in the court of Rebbe, and I assume we're talking about Dini Mominus. And we know Didi Avamas, well, it would have had to be Dini Mominus, because by the time Rebbe came around, I think already, his father, Shimon ben Gamliel. Yeah, but I think his great grandfather, his father was Shimon ben Gamliel, and his grandfather was Rabban Gamliel. I think by the time, by Rabban Gamliel already, I think the Sanhedrin already moved, and there wasn't Dinei Nefashos anymore, I think. So anyways, yes, some we're talking, also Rav, obviously, Rav wouldn't be judging Dinei Nefashos. Okay, so it was Dinei Mom in this case, and they started from Rav. Now the thing is that the Mishnah says that by Mominus you start by the Gadol, you start by the great one. So Ve'onan Maschilim min Agadol Tnan, but our Mishnah says you start from the Gadol, not from, so that would be Rebbe, of course. So Marabba Braid de Rav Vitem Rebhila Braid de Reb Valis Shiny Minyona de Rebbe Dechulu Minyonayu Minatzarav Maschle. It's different by the court of Rebbe, because by Rebbe they would always start from the side, because what does Rashi say? Because Rebbe was a big Anov, he was very humble, and therefore out of humility he would not begin with himself, he would begin with the others, and therefore they started with Rav. That's why Rav reports that when he was a member of Rebbe's court, he was part of one of the judges, so then they started with him rather than with Rebbe. V'amar Rabba Breder Rav Vitema Reb Hillel Breder Valis Mimois Moshe Vad Rebbe Loimatzinu Teiri Vigdula B'Mokim Echod. From the times of Moses until Rebbe, there was never a point where there was one individual who was both the greatest Torah scholar of the generation and the greatest leader, let's say, of the generation, political and administrative leader of the generation. Velo, wait, is that really true? V'havashia, what about Yoshua? After Moses was Joshua. Have a Elazar. Yeah, but during Joshua's time there was a Elazar who was on the same level, at least vis-a-vis Torah erudition. V'have Pinchas. What about Pinchas? Have a Zakanim, but there were other Zakanim during the time of Pinchas. What does Rashi say? Kigon Osniel ve'Avtzon uvoaz, and goes Vitzionim points out Avtzon Shehu Boyaz, quoting a Gemara from Baba Basra. So there were others during the time of Pinchas. V'have Shaul. What about Saul? Have a Shmuel. But during Saul's times there was Shmuel. Ve'anoch Nafshe, but Shmuel died. Kulu Shnei Ka'aminon. Yeah, we're talking about somebody who is, from the time he was born until the time that he expired, there was at no point somebody as great as him in both Torah and Gedula. Have a David, or what about King David? Have a Iri. V'noch nafshi, but Yiri died. Kulu shnei kaminim. But again, we're talking about for his entire life. David did not have the distinction that for his entire life there's nobody on his level by both Torah and Gedula, because for part of his life there was Ira Yiri. V'hava Shloima. What about Shloima? Hava Shimon ben Gera. But there was Shimon ben Gera. V'akatle. But he killed Shimon ben Gera. Kule Shnei Kaminim. But once again, we're talking about his entire lifespan. V'hava Chizkiah. Hava Shevna. What about Chizkiah? But we learned the other day about Shevna. V'iktil. But Shevna was killed. Kula Shnei Kaminim. But again, we're talking about his entire lifespan. V'hava Ezra. Hava Nechemia ben Chachalya. What about Ezra? Well, there was Nechemia. Says Avada bar Ahava, I will ochet say, Bimos Rebbe ad Rav Ashi, from the days of Rebbe until Rav Ashi, Lo Matzinu Teiri Vigdula b'Mok Mechad. We do not find one place where there was greatness in the sort of highest level of greatness of the generation in both Torah and Gedula. Velo, but is that really so? V'Ahava Huna bar Nosin. What about Huna bar Nosin? Big Tam Chocham. Huna bar Nosin make of Avakai for Rav Ashi. Yes, but Huna bar Nosin would sort of I don't know what would sort of defer to Rav Ashi. Okay, so I guess Avada bar Ahava says that from the times of Rebbe until Rav Ashi. Wow, Azoi. Din nefoshes maschilim min atzad. Okay, so by din nefoshes, by capital cases, we start from the side. Manoam nemida adu nodos omer of acha by pope omer kol leisaina al riv leisalna al ruv. That the post says leisaina al riv. Don't, I guess, fight, but it's without a yud written. So leisaina al ruv. So it's like don't argue on the greatest one, and therefore if you can't start with the greatest of the court, because then how can anybody argue with him? King David says to his people, he says, all right, everybody get your swords. So they all chaptaran a sword. He says, and then afterwards, King David chaptaran his sword at the end. Rav says, says Rav, that a person, you can have a teacher and a student, and the teacher is kind of like, handling with the student, and they're talking and learning, and they can count as two different judges on the Bezdin, even though kind of the teacher is providing info to the student, but they could still count as two distinct judges when it comes to Dinei Nefashos. Meisve, but we have a kasha, Tyrus, Fatmeis. That when it comes to Tyrus and Tmeis, Ha'av uvno, Ha'rav Talmidoi, Maniloim Shnaim Dinei Momnes. All right. Oh yeah, I think that reads kind of funny. But I think the point is that by Dinei Momnes and by Tyrus and Tmeis, you can have a father and son count as two different judges. Let me just make sure that I'm reading that correctly. Come on, page. Okay, for the opinions of a father and son is a disciple. God is tuned in the views. Oh no, I read it wrong. Oh, that's interesting. Wait, why did I don't know, I probably confused myself. Alright, let's start again. Rav says, okay, so Rav says, by Dinei Nefashos, you can have a person, a student and teacher, a teacher and student count as two judges by Dinei Nefashos. Period. So when it comes to Tyrus and Tmeis, a father and son, a teacher and disciple, they can count as two judges. However, Dinei Momenis, V'Dinei Nefashos, V'Dinei Makis, Kiddush, Achodesh, V'Ibur, Shana, Avuvno, Rav Talmido, Ein Moedin Loin, Ele Echad. They would only count as one. You can't have the student, the teacher and the student count as two separate judges, only one judge. I guess the teacher can maybe have the student if he wants to, talk and learning and talk things out, but it only counts as one judge. So how could Rav say that they count as two judges by Dinei Nefashos if we see that Dinei Nefashos is included in the list where they would only count as one judge? Okay, when Rav says that they count as two judges by Dinei Nefashos, you're going to have Kahana v'Rav Asi de Legamri de Rav Havutzich v'Svari de Rav Lo Havutzich. For example, Rav's students, Rav Kahana, Rav Asi, maybe they need Rav sort of knows everything. maybe they needed Rav to give them some info. They didn't have Google at the time. Not everybody necessarily had it, right? It was during the time of Rav. Rav was a student of Rebbe. Only during the times of Rebbe, for the first time in Jewish history, was Torah Shabbat Peh allowed to be written down. This was an extremely new phenomenon. People didn't have a whole shas on their shelves, right? So therefore, you would rely on the traditions of your teacher. So therefore, Rav Asi, Rav Kahana, sure, maybe they needed Rav to give them new traditions that they don't yet know. But in terms of once they have the tools, once they have these teachings, they know how to then work with them and think about them and ask questions on them and analyze them. So therefore, while yes, Rav was their teacher, and while yes, maybe they needed Rav to, provide them with some info, but once they had that info, they were good. They weren't dependent on Rav for their thinking, and therefore that's why they could be counted as two distinct judges. Again, Kikama Rav, Kikon Rav Kahana, Rav Asi, to the Gemara the Rav Avutzriche. Sure, they may have needed Rav to teach them new brises, new technical information, but with the Svari the Rav, but how to think, Lo Avutzriche, they didn't need that. They were able to think on their own. Therefore, they could be considered distinct judges. Amar Babo says, Asor Dvarim Yesh Medini Momus and Dini Nefashis. There are 10 distinctions between Dini Momus and Dini Nefashis. Right? If you look in our Mishnah that we had, where was that Mishnah already? I can't remember. Daf Lamed Beis. So we said, now, ma bein dini mamas dini nefashis dini, mamas b'shalosh dini nefashis b'esem b'shalosh dini, mamas poskim b'mitzchus b'nelev dini nefashis, etc., 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 etc. The Mishnah lists 10 distinctions between dini mamas and dini nefashis. Now, by shor aniskol, right? We've learned, of course, kmisas habaylim kach misas ashor, that we compare the killing of an ox that kills a person. So the ox gets skila, and that's with the peasant of 23. We say kmisas habaylim kach misas ashor, just like the owner, just like a human being would be judged by 23. So ochit, an ox is judged with 23. Now our Mishnah had distincted 10 distinctions between Dini Mamris and Dini Nefashis. And the Gemara now points out that of those 10 distinctions, the only one that applies to Ashur, that when we say Kmisas Bailim Kach Misas Ashur, the only part of these Dini Nefashis distinctions that applies to Ashur is the fact that Ashur is judged by 23. But all the other things, for example, starting during the day and ending during the day, requiring a majority of 3 rather than a majority of 2, etc., 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 those don't apply to the ox. Only the fact that it requires 23. Azoi. How do we know this? Right, the sate mishpat, right, right, that we say that by a dine nefashis, a majority of 1 for a guilty verdict, majority of 1 is not enough. You need a majority of 3. But now it says lo sate mishpat evyoncha berivo mishpat evyoncha yatamate. A majority of 1 is insufficient for a guilty verdict for evyoncha, for your what's the word I'm thinking of? I don't know. Evyonim. What's the word I'm thinking of? Ich weiß nicht. But you can, the destitute, maybe I was thinking of. But you can have a majority of 1 for a guilty verdict for a shor aniskol. Asara or tesavu. In fact, the Gemara, why are we saying that there are 10 distinctions in the Mishnah? There are only 9. Asara katani, what do you mean there are only 9? If you count in the Mishnah, Taka, there are 10. Well, because when we say Eina kol ksherim v'esem v'shosha kilu, how come meaning when we say that that for Dini Nefashis you need esem v'shosha 23, it's because it's a Sanhedrin Kitana. It's considered a small Sanhedrin, and a Sanhedrin Memele needs not everybody is going to be kosher to join the Sanhedrin. So therefore we say the reason why we're suggesting that there are 9 distinctions in the Mishnah is because you can argue that Eina Kol Ksherin, the fact that we say that for Din Nefashis, not everybody is qualified to judge, and the fact that we say that Esrim V'Shlosha, and the fact that we say that you need 23 judges for Din Nefashis, i.e. that it's a Sanhedrin Ketana, those two are the same things. I.e. the fact that it's a Sanhedrin Ketana, Memela means that not everybody is going to be able to qualify to be a judge on it. But there are others. The Tanya, for example, right? Because we learn about it. For example, we don't have in a Sanhedrin Zaken, somebody who is old and therefore hasn't raised children in a long time and doesn't have that kind of rachmanis of a person who's raising children. Visaris, or a person who's a castrato. Castratos, I guess, don't have certain sensitivities. Mishain Lobanim, or a person doesn't have children. Rabbi Yehuda adds, Afachzori, even if he's a nasty, rotten guy, also, you don't want him on the bench. However, we say, punkt fakert, when it comes to a mesis, as we know, have no mercy when it comes to a mesis, and therefore, sure, you want a rotten, nasty guy on the bench, or somebody without children, or a castrato. These are the people you want on the bench for a mesis. Where are we? Alright. So we say everybody can judge dine mamnis. Everybody knew. Okay, who are we coming to include that otherwise we may have thought to exclude? A mamzer can be on the bench for dine mamnis. Is being on the bench a negative term? If it is, stop me, because otherwise I'm going to use it. Being on the bench. Very dramatic. On the bench. Yeah. If it's negative, let me know. I'll stop doing it. Yeah, let's see mamzer. Okay. To include a mamzer, that a mamzer can be on the bench for dine mominus. Does being on the bench even mean judging? I don't really know, but Chevre, that's never stopped us over here. From now on, first of all, I think being on the bench does mean judging. But even if it doesn't, friends, on the Aflam Vav of Masechet Sanhedrin, Babylon Talmud decided that being on the bench means being a judge. But we already learned once before that if you are qualified to judge Dine Nefashis, Memele, you're qualified to judge Dine Mamnis. However, it could be that you are qualified to judge Dine Mamnis, but not Dine Nefashis. We ask, who is allowed to judge Dine Mamnis but cannot judge Dine Nefashis? Include a mamzer, no. So we already know that a mamzer can judge dine mamnis. Okay, one place we're coming to include a proselyte, and the other one we're coming to include a mamzer v'tzricha. And we need both scenarios. We need to know both about the proselyte and the mamzer diash. If we would only say that a proselyte can judge dine mamnis tiroi lovi bakal, because a proselyte can marry, a male proselyte can marry a Jewish woman. Of a mamzer, emelo, but a mamzer, it's tricky. Can only marry another mamzer. V'yashminon mamzer dubami tipak sher. And if you don't say a mamzer can judge dine mamnis, well, because he was born from a kosher seed, right? He was born Jewish. Avager deloy bami tipak sher emeloi, but a proselyte who initially was born from a non-Jewish, non-kosher seed, so then maybe cannot judge dine mamnis. Therefore we say both a proselyte and the mamzer can judge dine mamnis. But not everybody can judge dine nefashos. My time I'll come to Tani Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef taught Kshim Bezdin menukin b'tzedek, just like Bezdin is clean in righteousness. Kach menukin mikolmum. They're also clean from all blemishes. Amar Meimer Mikra says, Meimer, I don't know this. Kulach yofa rayosi. That you're all beautiful rayosi. I think we're going to see Re'echa krosum in your thoughts. So maybe that's somehow connected to Bezdin. Mum einbach, you have no blemishes. V'dilma mum mamish, maybe means literally a physical blemish. It says by Moses and the 70 elders that he collected, that they will stand there with you, imach bedominloch, that they are similar to you. that they have proper yichus. V'dama also mishum shechina. Maybe that's only because they were there together with the shechina. Hello, Omer Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. Omer Kav v'nosu itoch b'dor milach le'avi. Yeah, by Yisroi it says v'nosu itoch. By the judges, i.e. itoch b'dor milach, that they have proper yichus. Cheved, that was daf Lamed Vav Masechta Sanhedrin. Pretty nice and chilled out daf Masechta Sanhedrin. Peace out.